Morning, fifth grade. Today is Thursday, August 27th, and we're getting closer to Friday. I hope you're having a great day so far. And this is what we're going to be doing in science today. First thing we're going to do is our visual literacy mat. So we're on, this is Thursday, so you should already have worked on most of your visual literacy mat. So the first page you don't fill out, that's just how it would look if we were in class together. It would all be on one page. You already did analyze and connect. Remember, 2 to 3 sentences per page. And yesterday you did classify and critique. And now you did classify and critique on Tuesday, and yesterday you did conclusion. And now today, you're going to say, what kind of questions, well-defined questions can you ask? 2 to 3 questions. What questions do you have about this photo? And then tomorrow we'll wrap it up. Next is the flip grid. We are having some great discussions on there. So if you guys are all coming up with some great ideas and communicating those with each other. And I just hope more of you can get on there. We have most kids on there, but if more of you can get on and just click the link and head that way, or use the Flipgrid app and then use the code in the box, and that's here in the assignment. All right. Today is actually an inquiry investigation for our science lesson, and I'm going to show you how sand dunes are made. And I'm going to model how sand dunes are made. And then when we're done, we're going to draw that in our science journal, how sand dunes are made. All right. And so I want to think about how you would do the experiment, think about that, and then draw it in your journal. All right. And then when we're done with that, we're going to do another CER.
Okay, for our model for sand dunes, we are going to have a pan and some sand. I did some fine sand and a straw to help us simulate the wind. And then we need to have our safety goggles. And I do apologize for the shaky cam. So the first thing I'm going to do is pour the sand in. I want it to be a little thick, just like on the beach. It's pretty thick sand. And if you can see there, I'm making it really super flat. See how much of the pan you can see? And then this side is going to represent an obstacle that sand can meet on the beach. Now I'm going to be sure to wear my safety goggles because a little bit of sand is going to get everywhere. So I'm going to blow on the sand just like the wind and see what happens to the sand. And I do blow on the sand, blow the wind for quite a long time, for several minutes. Now you can see that it has piled up against this obstacle like a hill. And some of it has come off out the side and around, but most of it is there in a pile like a dune. It doesn't look like a big change unless you look back at the original and then look at the end. I didn't have to blow on the wind for very long to make the sand dune. So actually sand dunes can be made very quickly, and also they can be made over a long period of time. That's how you can make a model of how sand dunes are made. Let's go take a look at your science journal. You're going to have to add another line to your table of contents. We're now going to do landforms. Our next unit is landforms. So I'm going to put page 6 because that's the page that is next. Your journal might be different. And then I'm going to type landforms. On paper or on digital, this is what your table of contents should look like now. And now we're going to, if you're doing the digital journal, you're going to click that blue arrow at the bottom left and add another page. And if you're doing paper, just turn the page to the next blank. And at the very top, you're going to type landforms. Next, you should include any notes you took from today. I'm going to write some notes about weathering, erosion, and deposition, since we learned about that today. I just made a note about how weathering is when rocks are broken down into smaller pieces. And now I'm going to make a note about erosion. I made a note to remind myself about erosion is when sediment is carried away by a natural force like a river or wind or gravity. Last, I made a note to myself about how deposition is when sediment is carried away from one place and dropped off at another place, like by natural forces like a river. My next entry is going to be wind landforms. And I'm going to make a note to myself that wind creates landforms like sand dunes and arches. Last thing I'm going to add today is our sand dune model. I'm going to record the materials we used, which was the tray, the sand, the straw, and the goggles. Lastly, I'm going to draw and explain what happened. First, I put sand in the pan and I put it up against the side, and the side did represent the obstacle. And then I used the straw and blew like it was wind, and I blew across the sand for several minutes. And then, of course, lastly, I observed and saw that the sand had made up a pile against the side. Using your journal will really help you remember all the things we learn in science class. Now let's move into our last activity.
Okay, here is today's CER. Anthony is ready for his family's summer trip to the beach. He is looking at pictures from last year's adventure to South Florida and notices the beach they visited was hills and mounds of sand. These huge piles of sand could not have been created by humans. Anthony wonders how those sand dunes got there. So we're going to write a scientific explanation describing how these hills and mounds of sand pile up on the beach. We're still learning how to do these CERs, and so you just have to put fill in the blanks. And I even have a word bank for you here: animals, obstacles, people, sand, and then wind 3 times. So you can cross those off and fill in the blanks. I want you to be thinking about what sentences you would write, because starting next week, we are going to slowly have you take on more of the work for the claim evidence reasoning, and slowly we'll get to the point where you'll just be building your own sentences and thinking about what you want to say for your claim evidence reasoning. But today we're still just thinking about how it looks and what it's saying, and thinking about what you would say, but you don't have to actually do anything except put in the words. So the first one says claim. Something picks up tiny parts of sand, then gets deposited into piles called sand dune. Okay. Something picks up tiny parts of sand, then gets deposited into piles called sand dunes. Okay. Evidence number 1. You should always have at least 2 pieces of evidence. Sand dunes form when both something and something are present. Evidence number 2. The dunes are too large to be made by something or something. Fill in those blanks. Now your reasoning. The force of something causes the sand to blow and pile up against something on the land, forming these hills and mounds of sand. Think about what we did in our experiment today, right? When I modeled also. All right, that's it for today. When you complete your, when you watch the video and do your Flipgrid and your visual literacy mat, and then finally this CER, you're done with science for the day. Let me know if you have any questions.